I thought I'd start out by sharing one of my hobbies with you. This is one of the things I do in my spare time. It's fused glass, where I melt the glass in a kiln. So this particular thing is called a pot melt. It's a little ceramic, like a flower pot. It's got holes in the bottom. The one on the left there is the pot upside down, and the one on the right is the inside of the pot. And what you do is you put pieces of glass inside the pot, stick it in a kiln up on a stand, heat it to about 1400 degrees, and the glass melts and drips down through the holes. And so there's a dam at the bottom where you control how far it's going to spread out. So it just melts down and forms a kind of interesting patterns. So I've got two kilns in my house. It's a coffin kiln on the right, a big one, smaller kiln on the left. The window here is a peacock that my wife made. The way you do that is it's like sand painting. You use powdered glass and you make the image in powdered glass, and then you fuse it. You heat it to about 1300 degrees. It all melts together. And I think that one she ended up firing about 4 times. Just keep adding more and more detail. And so this is the pot melting process. There's a viewing hole through the side of the kiln. So the glass melts and drips down and forms these patterns. And that's the pattern that it actually made. It's just kind of interesting. So my hobby's melting glass, I guess, but.
You make bottles that you on a rod and do things like that?
Not so much with bottles. This is a kind of a vase that she made. So this is a circular form that you put the glass on top, and it all melts down in the bottom. And it's just a hobby. So this one I carved the star out of wood. Then I took a high temperature plaster and cast the star in the plaster. And then I took, it's called frit. It's powdered glass. So you put the powdered glass in the plaster mold and heat it to about 1400 degrees. So that's the star that you get, and then you kind of grind the edges and make it a little bit smoother. And then I tack fused it to another piece of glass. That's where you heat it to about 1100 degrees. And it's not hot enough to melt the glass, just enough to make it all stick together. So that's just one of my hobbies. Last time I gave a quiz, and the topic of the quiz was, which religion teaches I am the way to salvation? Of course, they all say that. But there was a question about this passage from Psalms, whether it actually says that. So I spoke a little bit about Strong's Concordance and an interlinear, and I'll explain that. So the question was, does Psalms 98 actually say this? So there's a book. This particular one is Green's Literal Greek-English Interlinear. And what it does is it gives you the literal translation on the left column, and then it gives you the Hebrew, and below each Hebrew word is the translation. And then above each word is a number. And you can go back to Strong's Concordance and you can research the pronunciation of the Hebrew word, the derivation, prefix, suffix, and the various translations of the word. So this is Psalm 98, the same passage that was quoted in the quiz. And so Jehovah has revealed his salvation, his faithfulness to the house of Israel. All the ends of the earth have seen his salvation. And these are actually, this is the word salvation in Hebrew. And you notice the number is 3444. 3444. So with these books, you can actually become a Bible scholar almost overnight. So this is Strong's Concordance and an interlinear. These are easily obtainable, any bookstore, Amazon, or anywhere. Strong's is kind of the granddaddy of all the concordances. What a concordance is an index of every word that's in the Bible. So you can look up any passage, go back and find any word, and go back to the original source. It'll tell you how to pronounce it in Hebrew. And this is, I've got this one. It's Green's Interlinear. It's not the cheapest book. I think on Amazon it's 35 bucks. But it gives you, that's the one I showed you before, where it showed you the Hebrew, the translation of each word, and then the Strong's number up above. And I'm really not here to sell books, but
Isn't Yeshua and Joshua a derivative of salvation? So you can substitute the word Yeshua in place of salvation?
yes. So a lot of people think that Jesus' name was actually Yeshua. I don't know if his mother would have named him salvation or not, because the word Yeshua in Hebrew is salvation. This is James Strong. This is the guy that developed the Strong's Concordance. He lived in the early 1800s. And at that time, it would have been just a massive work to index every word in the Bible and to put it in some kind of list. And so you could. So salvation. This is from Strong's Concordance, and it shows you every instance of the word salvation in the Old Testament and the New Testament. So the word salvation appears 118 times in the Old Testament, and it appears 45 times in the New Testament. And you can see many of the occurrences is in Psalms, Isaiah. But when I showed you the interlinear, the Strong's number for salvation was 3444.
Sorry?
It's okay.
I was expecting a 44.
So it shows you 3444. This is actually the... And as Laura just said, the word salvation in Hebrew is Yeshua. So in the Strong's Concordance, it gives you a number 8444. So you look that up in the book. Strong's Concordance is about this thick. Gives you the Hebrew, gives the pronunciation, Yehoshua. And so the word Yeshua in Hebrew is salvation. So again, there are a lot of people who think that Jesus' name actually was Yeshua. Personally, I'm a little bit skeptical that his mother would have named him salvation, but who knows? The word Jesus is actually Greek, so I think it's a pretty good bet that his mother did not name him a Greek name, because at that time the Hebrews hated the Greeks. So I guess we really don't even know what Jesus' real name was. There is no J in Greek, so in the Greek his name is spelled I-O, Zeus. Of course, the name of the Greek god was Zeus, so Jesus, Moses, these were not their names.
Does anybody really know why they changed their names? Because like even some of the disciples, it said one minute they were called, Saul, and the next minute they were called Paul. And,
Yeah.
why did they change their names so much?
Because it was Greek, the Hellenized
That's part of it, yeah. And to some of the cultures, it symbolizes a new birth. The Apostle Paul's name originally was Saul, and when he became a Christian, he changed it to Paul. And the people that he was trying to reach were primarily the Greek culture. He had almost no effect in Israel. And the word Paul in the Greek is Paulus. And the Greek god of communication, the messenger, is Apollo. So it's a derivation of the word Apollo. To us today, that might seem a little bit scandalous, but back then, that was a very common name, especially for a messenger. So, Laura, yes, here's the Hebrew for Yeshua, or for salvation. So yes, it does actually, the Hebrew word for salvation is Yeshua. That's the Greek word for salvation. Soteria. So in the Strong's Concordance, the Greek word soteria is number 4991. So if you go to the Interlinear, follow the Greek, it'll give you the translation, the English translation under the Greek word, and then the Strong's number above it. So 4991 is soteria. It's interesting that the word salvation appears more times in the Old Testament than it does in the New Testament. So this is just another example of what the Hebrew part of the interlinear looks like. Hebrew reads right to left. So the wilderness, the dry land shall rejoice for them, shall joy for them, wilderness and dry land, and shall exalt the desert and bloom. So Isaiah says that the Redeemer, or the Messiah of Isaiah, will come to Carmel and Sharon. That's chapter 35. So I'm going to be talking about Isaiah in a future class. Anybody, is this new to some people? You've seen this before? Or? No? Okay. So you can, one thing, if you check the translations, you can see that that's just a little closer view of it. So this is Matthew 24. The previous one was showing you the Hebrew. Hebrew reads right to left. Greek reads left to right. So this is Matthew 24. So sitting on the Mount of Olives, came to Jesus, the disciples privately, saying, "Tell us, when will these things be, and what is the sign of the presence and of the termination of the age?" Again, as I said in previous class, the Bible doesn't teach the end of the world. It talks about the end of the age, or the renewing, or the all things made new. So here it's talking about return of the presence. And this is Strong's word presence is number 3952, parousia. So it's the return of the presence, or the voice, is what they're talking about. You can go online and you can do the exact same thing online. This particular site is BibleGateway.com. And in this one you can do a parallel. So this is the English translation of Matthew 24. This is the Greek. And you can do an interlinear also. So with the iPhone, you can do the exact same thing. Again, this is Daniel. So this is in Hebrew. This is Daniel 9:24. This passage actually foretells the appearance of Jesus. You seen this one before?
Oh, I just wanted to say that in the Perusian, the derivative of Perusian is paraclete, which is the Holy Spirit.
Yes.
The Holy Spirit dwells in the presence of God within, in the
Yes.
fullness of the divine.
Yes.
So that paraclete and Perusian and presence.
Parousia, yes, the same prefix. Yeah. The word paraclete actually means para is like parallel lines, one like another line, so it means one like. Kletos is a holy one. So Jesus talks about the coming of another parakletos. So there were other parakletos in the past. Moses says that God will raise up for you another prophet like me. Unto him you must listen. So Jesus was actually paraphrasing Moses. Moses says, I will send another one like me. Jesus said, I will send you another parakletos, one like the Holy One, one like me. This particular passage in Daniel talks about the 70 weeks prophecy, and I'll explain this in detail, but it actually explicitly foretells the coming of Jesus. So this is an iPhone app, so you can touch any one of the blue words, any one of the blue links. So you touch this one, and it takes you to this page. So in the English, the word Messiah, and it shows you the Strong's number, gives you the Hebrew, the pronunciation, Mashiach, means anointed. The anointed Messiah. So anyone who was anointed was someone who was smeared with oil. So the kings of ancient Israel were anointed. Isaiah refers to Cyrus, the king of Persia, as my anointed. And the Greek equivalent of the word Messiah or Mashiach is Christ. So the Greek word for oil is chrism, and someone who is anointed or smeared with oil is Christ. Chrism and Christ, Mashiach, Messiah. It's all the same word, different languages. This is Matthew 24 on the same iPhone app. What will be the sign of thy coming in the end of the world? This is the King James translation. Two key mistranslations here. Sign of thy coming is parousia, the presence in the end of the world. It doesn't say world. You click on this, and it gives you this. So it's the strong number, the Greek word ahion, and an aeon. An ahion is an age or dispensation. So age, Messianic period, and then you just click return, and it takes you back to the Bible. It's pretty handy to have. So again, Matthew 24 does not speak of the end of the world, it speaks of the end of the age. And in prophecies like in Daniel and in Revelation, they give you a timetable. This is how long the opposition is going to be allowed to exist. And so this, when they talk about the age, that's what they're talking about. It's not the end of the world. This is actually what the New Testament is all about. It's not the end of the world. It's the time when all things will be made new. So it talks about the New Jerusalem. In Daniel, it talks about the succession of the non-Jewish foreign kingdoms who had conquered Jerusalem. Here the book of Revelation is saying another Jerusalem's going to come, a new Jerusalem. And in the book of Daniel, it talks about the stone coming down from heaven, crushing the idol, which represents all the previous kingdoms, the non-Jewish kingdoms. So Assyria, Babylon, Persia, Greek, Roman, Islamic. So the light of the Jerusalem, the city had no need of the sun, the glory of God illuminated it, even lamp is the Lamb. So it talks about the Lamb and the glory of God. This passage, new all things I make. So this is what the book of Revelation is about. Again, it's not about the end of the world. So the apocalypse is not about, the word apocalypse means revelation. Apo means to go out. An apostle is one who goes out. An apostate is one, apostasia, one who goes out from a firm foundation. So apocalypse, a calypse is something that is hidden. Apocalypse is something that goes out from that which is hidden. So he's talking about, that's what the word revelation means. So right there it talks about all things being made new. And again, it gives you the Greek word, the Strong's number, and then the English translation. What thoughts? Go ahead, sure.